In my latest video, I've got 3 exciting stories to share with you. First up, a DAO, yep, that's a decentralized autonomous organization, is coming to the XRP ledger, and I'll kick things off with that. Next, we'll dive into this big headline: Genius Act passage solidifies XRP status. And finally, Coinbase's chief legal officer chimed in, saying it's time for the US to catch up as Canada launches a spot XRP ETF. Before we get started, though, just a quick note. I'm not a financial expert, and this isn't financial advice. Please don't make any buying or selling decisions based on what I say or write. Let's jump in. Okay, so here's the headline. But first, a little backstory. They're talking about a new organization that hasn't launched yet, and it's spelled XAO space DAO. Now, usually when there's an X at the start, it's pronounced like a Z, so I'm guessing it's pronounced XAO DAO. I haven't heard anyone say it out loud yet, so I could be wrong, but I'm sticking with XAO DAO because it sounds nice and rhymes. Fingers crossed I got it right. Anyway, here's the headline. XRP Ledger steps into decentralized governance with the launch of XAO DAO. Big news for the XRP Ledger community. The network is gearing up for an exciting new chapter with the upcoming launch of XAO DAO, its very first decentralized autonomous organization, DAO. This marks a big step toward more decentralized governance on XRPL, giving users a clear way to get involved in key decisions, fund projects, and help drive real-world blockchain adoption. Now, here's the scoop. XAO DAO isn't live just yet. It's set to launch fully by the end of summer, so details are still pretty limited at this point. In fact, the official website simply says coming soon. But if this is done right, and there's a good chance it will be, I'll explain why in a bit, it could be a fantastic addition to the XRP ledger. Just to be clear, this doesn't change how the XRP ledger works. The governance, the code, and the consensus mechanism all stay exactly the same. What we're really talking about is creating a new organization. Think of it like a group choosing to work on the XRP ledger, but instead of being run by one leader, it's decentralized with no single person in charge. Pretty exciting, right? This could bring in cool features like community governance, voting, treasury management, and other things you'd expect from a DAO. These are big steps for DeFi and could add a lot of value to the XRP ecosystem. It's pretty interesting when you think about it. If this goes well and turns out to be a success, it could really boost developer activity on the XRP ledger. And that alone could drive up demand for the Hooks Amendment, which would bring native smart contract functionality to the XRP ledger. The amazing part, it's completely doable. In fact, XAO, which is basically a modified clone of the XRP ledger, has already implemented it successfully. So the potential here is huge. I totally get why there's some hesitation about making big changes. If you miss something, it could cause serious issues. You really have to be thorough and get every detail right. So I completely understand the caution. That said, I do believe this kind of thing can happen. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point down the line, we see native smart contract functionality on the XRP ledger. For the longest time, I didn't think it was likely. I had my doubts, and pretty strong ones at that. But what really shifted my perspective was seeing David Schwartz, one of the creators of XRP and the XRP ledger, and someone who was originally very skeptical, change his stance. Over the last couple of years, he's become convinced that there's a way to introduce smart contract functionality to the XRP ledger without compromising its core strengths. This is a big deal because, let's be real, the main concern a lot of people, myself included, have is whether adding smart contracts might weaken XRP's primary role, payments. XRP's core competency is payments, and we don't want to mess that up. But David now believes it's possible to implement smart contracts in a way that doesn't interfere with the XRP ledger's other critical functions. We're talking instant settlement here. Transactions happen in just 3 to 5 seconds, and the costs, they're so low, they're practically free, just a fraction of a penny. It's so cheap that no one even thinks about the tiny costs involved. As long as that foundation isn't messed up, I've always felt like adding more features, encouraging developer activity, and sparking more interest is the way to go. If this works out, it could lead to some exciting things: more decentralized apps on the XRP ledger, better infrastructure, more educational resources, improved documentation, and just a lot more building and innovation overall. If this is done right, it could be a huge win for everyone. And honestly, it doesn't feel like this is just about making a quick buck. It seems like there's real potential here for meaningful growth. Let me tell you why I'm excited about this. First off, it's coming from Santiago Velez, one of the co-founders of XAO DAO, and someone I really respect in this space. The guy is absolutely brilliant, and has a ton of knowledge to share. If he's behind this project, that alone makes me want to learn more. It's a strong vote of confidence simply because of his reputation and credibility. Santiago is not just knowledgeable about crypto in general, but really sharp when it comes to the XRP ecosystem specifically. Oh, and here's another thing worth noting. It looks like there won't be a token involved, which is pretty interesting. All in all, I'm definitely intrigued. There's not a ton of info to work with here, and of course, things could always change, but for now, here's what we know. When this news broke the other day, he posted something that caught my attention. I'm excited to be a part of this DAO, and I'm hoping everyone in the XRP Ledger community is too. At XAO DAO, we're setting the standard for governance and value in Web3 for our members. Sounds promising, right? Oh, and here's the cherry on top. He wrapped it up by saying there's only one token that matters for XAO DAO, XRP. Now that's music to my ears. The main token to focus on here is XRP, and it seems like there aren't plans to launch any other major tokens, just a couple of small exceptions. There was a post about this that goes into more detail. It's pretty long, so I won't go through the whole thing, but I'll pull it up in case you want to pause and check it out yourself. What's interesting is that they confirmed the XRP Ledger mainnets would be used. There's also a mention of NFTs, which could potentially be used for governance or token purposes. I'll grab the exact wording in just a second. Aside from that, there was talk of a governance token, possibly for a side chain or an EVM side chain. However, there's no sign this token would be used for profit making or traded on open markets like exchanges. When it comes to Web3, there's no one perfect definition, but the best explanation I've come across, though I can't remember if it was from Brad Garlinghouse or someone else, is this. Web3 is basically Web 2, but decentralized. If you're familiar with Web 2, that makes sense. Web 2 is the internet we use today, where there's actual interaction between people. Think social media, like how we're here chatting on X. It's all about engagement and connection, not just consuming information. Compare that to Web 1, which was more like reading a static book on a screen. Back in the 90s, there wasn't much interaction, no real shopping or communities. Sure, there were early bulletin boards, but it was mostly just pulling data and reading it. Then over time, we transitioned into what we now call Web 2 with all the human interaction and connectivity we've come to expect. Web 3 builds on that, but with decentralization at its core. Web 3 is basically the same concept as before, but with decentralization at its core. That's exactly what you're describing here, a decentralized autonomous organization, DAO, on the XRP ledger. And yep, that's totally in line with the core idea of Web 3. Attorney John Deaton shared his thoughts on this recently, and he's super excited for Santiago and the team behind the XAO DAO. What's really cool about this project is that from what we know, there's no token launch, no stealth drops, no airdrops, and no pre-sale. It's refreshing to see projects with a clear and straightforward approach. It's all about utility, governance, and community. And I'm really excited about what's ahead. My fellow expert YouTuber, Crypto Eddie, shared an interesting post that I think is worth highlighting. She mentioned this as a major step towards strengthening decentralization, which is such an important aspect of the conversation. To clarify, the article she referenced was discussing centralization versus decentralization in relation to the XRP ledger. And just so we're clear, the XRP ledger is already decentralized. If done right, this will encourage more community engagement, bringing in a wider range of opinions and perspectives as the group works towards decentralized decisions. So yes, it would definitely deepen the decentralization of the already decentralized XRP ledger. Absolutely true. She's spot on about that. Second, it's all about giving every XRP holder an equal voice, making sure no perspective gets left out. And third, it's about creating a collective opportunity to shape the future of the XRP ledger together, building something aligned with a shared vision and purpose. Here's the latest from XAO DAO. So what is XAO DAO? Simply put, it's a decentralized organization that aims to put power where it truly belongs, in the hands of its members. The idea is simple. Participation drives progress. You can propose ideas, vote, and help shape the future together. Pretty cool, right? They also shared their core values on the screen here, which sum things up nicely. That's really the gist of it. There aren't a ton of specifics just yet. The most details we've seen so far came from Santiago, who was asked an interesting question by a community member: how will XRP Ledger technology be used for DAO governance? Or will an EVM sidechain come into play? Santiago gave a thoughtful, detailed response. You can pause here to read it if you want. He broke down how the XRP Ledger mainnet might be used and how an XRP Ledger EVM sidechain could also work. There's even potential for a governance token, one that could be used for minting, voting, and burning. There's no sign of any kind of token being launched just to raise funds or as a quick money grab, none of that. And honestly, that's a good thing. It adds a layer of credibility to the whole effort, in my opinion. Now, that's not to say you can't have a reputable organization, even a decentralized one, with a token launch. But when there's no obvious money grab in the mix, it removes that question mark around motivation. It shows they're probably acting in good faith, which is always a plus. Honestly, with his reputation, I'm not worried about that at all. Just thinking out loud here, but this could turn into something really exciting. It's yet another step toward ensuring the long-term success of XRP and the XRP Ledger. As if we didn't already have plenty of reasons to feel great about it. Things have never looked better for XRP holders, no doubt about it. Here's some exciting news from Crypto Basic. The Genius Act passage is solidifying XRP status. I mentioned this briefly in a video the other day. Big update. The Genius Act made it through the Senate, but hold on, it's not a done deal just yet. It still needs to pass through the House, and then President Trump would have to sign it into law. The good news, he seems ready to do just that. Why does this matter? Well, this act is all about creating a solid legal framework for stablecoins in the US. And honestly, it's about time. It's 2025, and we're finally seeing progress on this front. For XRP holders, this is huge. Right now, there are two major USD stablecoins, Tether and USDC, but ROUSD might just be the one with the potential to scale up massively in adoption. Those three things directly benefit XRP holders. Why? Because every transaction on the XRP ledger requires XRP. It's literally part of the process. This creates more demand for XRP, and it sends a clear signal to anyone interested in crypto. XRP isn't going anywhere. It's being used for real, tangible reasons. And here's the exciting part: the government is now embracing this space. That puts us in an amazing position as a community. If RLUSD continues to succeed, we could be some of the biggest winners in this growing ecosystem. If anyone can make this happen, it's Ripple, no doubt about it. Just the other day, we saw this headline: Trump on Genius stablecoin build. Get it to my desk ASAP. Eleanor Tarrant even shared a screen grab from his post on Truth Social. I won't read the whole thing here, but feel free to pause and check it out. The key takeaway: Trump's message was crystal clear. Get it to my desk ASAP. No delays, no add-ons. He wants it exactly as it is, just signed and done. Fingers crossed this moves forward quickly. I'm feeling pretty optimistic right now, honestly. Just seeing it get this far is such a big deal. The margin was impressive too. There were about 68 votes in favor. I can't remember exactly if everyone voted, but I think it was around 30 or 32 nays, maybe even just 30. I'd have to look it up again, but I remember it being pretty overwhelming at the time. What's exciting is that even though most Democrats have generally been against crypto, some of them are starting to come around. They're realizing that crypto isn't going anywhere and that it's better to get on board and help shape the legislation rather than fight it. It's honestly wild to me how an entire voter bloc was just willingly given up. Think about it, heading into the 2024 presidential election, there's really no such thing as an anti-crypto voting group. No one is going to cast their vote just because a candidate is anti-crypto. In fact, it's quite the opposite. There are plenty of people who will absolutely vote against someone for being anti-crypto. Being anti-crypto just doesn't make sense. There's no upside for any political party, none. And honestly, this shouldn't even be a partisan issue. Eventually, they're going to come around. It's just so obvious. I mean, check out the shift in attitude. I really love seeing this kind of perspective coming from the highest levels of the US government. Here's what Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had to say: crypto is not a threat to the dollar. If that doesn't give you confidence, I don't know what will. And of course, think about what this means for the XRP ecosystem. Stable coins can actually help strengthen the dollar's global dominance. Digital assets are one of the most important innovations happening right now, yet governments have overlooked them for far too long. This administration is focused on making the US a leader in digital asset innovation, and the Genius Act is a big step in that direction. Here's the thing: stablecoins are great for the dollar because they're backed by it. They represent the dollar itself and can also be supported by things like treasury bills and US government debt. Basically, they're backed by everything that makes America strong. It couldn't be more clear. This is the path forward, and it's exciting to see progress being made. Hunter Horsley, the CEO of Bitwise, shared an interesting post recently. It pointed out that 2025 is shaping up to be the first year the US government genuinely wants to see crypto succeed. It's a huge shift, like game changing. The full impact hasn't even unfolded yet, but it feels like the start of crypto's mainstream moment. He's absolutely right. Now imagine we stay on this path for another 5 or 10 years. With XRP in the mix as a clear front runner, how big could it really get? My guess, way bigger than where we are now. Of course, there's still some catching up to do, but the potential is enormous. Here's another headline for you. Coinbase's chief legal officer says it's time for the US to catch up as Canada launches an XRP ETF. I mentioned the other day that this was coming, so I won't harp on it too much, but it's worth touching on with everything else happening, like the Genius Act making waves. The momentum is definitely building. Big shout out to Canada, aka America's hat, for being ahead of the game on this one. They've kicked things off with the XRP ETF before the US, which honestly isn't too surprising given some of the leadership we've had in recent years. Crypto's had a rough few years, but things are finally starting to turn around. Paul Graywall, Coinbase's CLO, made a great point about this recently. He shared a post on X, formerly Twitter, to highlight the significance of what's happening. Here's what he said. As Canadians begin trading the 3IQ XRP ETF today, a reminder, regulatory clarity drives innovation. Canada had the world's first Bitcoin ETF in 2021. Regulatory clarity is key, and Canada is showing us what that looks like. Hopefully the US can follow suit soon. Canada just beat the US to the punch with an XRP ETF. It's about time the US got its act together and sorted out crypto market structure legislation, don't you think? That said, I do believe it's on the way. But here's a twist. Canada didn't actually snag the very first spot XRP ETF. That honor goes to Brazil. I covered this when it happened, so some of you might remember on April 26, Crypto Briefing reported that Brazil launched the first ever XRP spot ETF on its main stock exchange. Pretty exciting, right? Now, Canada has joined the game, leaving the US a bit behind, but don't worry. I'm confident we'll catch up soon. It's just a matter of time. I really think we're going to see some big changes ahead, and it's going to be huge. The United States is the largest capital market in the world, and the amount of money that could flow in because of this is going to have a major impact over the coming years and even decades. Definitely exciting times for XRP holders. That said, just a quick note, I'm not a financial advisor, so please don't make any buying or selling decisions based solely on what I say or write. Always do your own research. That's super important.